was separate. Okay.
This is next.
Yeah. That is, there's some special pay or special. All right. I'd like to call the Board of Supervisors back to order. We've already done the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence and adopted an agenda and determined the quorum. I think we're now at public comment. Public comment.
I'd like to say a compliment to Tracy Clark. That Republican blue PMS 287 is really growing. And I'm very happy about it.
Everybody know what this is?
No.
Jump, please jump.
Well, as a former printer, I used to do work for the Republican Party. That's one of the two colors the Republicans use in their logo.
All right. There you go, Tracy.
It's a hand-on access.
All right. Other public comment. Other public comment. All right, moving on. We do have we do have a public hearing this evening on the FY21 budget amendment. We have an ad. Bob, Sean, Greg, who would like to give us an explanation?
This is sort of the enabling advertisement so that we can start trying to spend some of the CARES fund money that is maybe for the
Bob, anything to add? MJ, anything to add?
Are we gonna talk about the list?
Yes, later. That's moving forward. Anybody else?
I would like to add
Yes,
something.
please.
We received, we received 1,156,971 in CARES Title V money, which comes from the Department of the Treasury. We received other CARES money from different federal granting agencies that have a lot of restrictions on them this public hearing does not address. I do not believe you need to consider all of that CARES funding in lump sum because they're coming from different places and have different plans. The other thing I'd like to add is that we already used some of the 1 million in FY20. So what we advertised is not the full value of in May, it's what we received in May less what we appropriated.
That is correct.
Very good. So we're just amending the FY21 budget. Anybody have any comments on the party?
And the other amounts you're speaking about, MJ, don't meet the threshold of going through an amendment.
Well, you don't really need to, in terms of looking at it in terms of the budget adjustment,
Sure.
you don't need to aggregate that. Almost like 49,000 from electoral. PMS got 13,000 from Department of Health and Human Services.
Good. All right. Any other comments? All right. The public hearing is open. Does the public have any comments on the amendment of 1.104620 to the FY21 budget?
I have a question.
Okay.
Mike Fisher. The question is, do we have any idea the shortfall that we're gonna have in this county? I mean, we're spending money, but
The answer is no. and I think everybody is kind of waiting on the session. The legislature go into session August 18th and see what the state cuts promise. That's where I think everybody is concerned. This money is a little bit outside of that realm, and it cannot be used on our side to balance the budget. The schools have gotten a share of money that can be used to balance or to offset decreased revenue till 2022. That's a different pool of money. Please.
So, Mr. Fisher, if you look at number 10 under old business, I think work session scheduled for amending the FY21 budget. And this board only appropriated half a year's budget because of the very question you asked. So hopefully we'll have some information when we do entertain looking at the budget going forward.
Other public comment on the amendment to the FY21 budget? All right, back to the board.
Still was an appropriation that would put all this money in the county's line.
All right, very good. And that would be pending the approval of specific items by the Board of Supervisors. Do you have any questions on this?
Do we need to approve the amendment and then also approve the appropriation, or one?
The way you amend the budget is to approve the supplemental budget.
Okay, very well, thank you.
Once you approve the supplemental appropriation, you should back to have a budget.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the proposed FY21 supplemental appropriation to approve the first half CARES allocation as advertised and discussed in public hearing held today.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
And second one. Mr. Chairman, I also move to grant administrative authority to the county finance director to reallocate funds from Fund 14 contingency balance to cover the bills due and payable prior to final decision by the Board of Supervisors regarding departmental allocation of the CARES Act funding.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Love tourism grant, congratulations, Tracy, I assume. The public employee compensation adjustment, the electoral board CARES Act funding, and a recognition of Elizabeth Roebuck's service to Madison County. Pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have us remove the resolution recognizing Elizabeth Roebuck's service to Madison and perhaps really read the resolution and honor her in that way. Otherwise, good with it.
To adopt this.
It's a pleasure of the board.
I second the amended consent agenda. That's what that was.
Sounded like it. Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carter, you want to read the Elizabeth?
Yeah, I'll be glad to.
Please.
Yeah, resolution number 2020-22, resolution of the Board of Supervisors of Madison County, Virginia. Whereas Elizabeth Roebuck joined the staff of the Madison County Department of Social Services in 1983, working in various eligibility positions of progressive responsibility. And whereas Elizabeth Roebuck has tirelessly promoted the Madison Social Services mission statement of, quote, people helping people to triumph over poverty, abuse, and neglect, to shape strong futures for themselves, their families, and their communities, end quote. And whereas countless children and adults in Madison County have seen Elizabeth Roebuck as the face of the Department of Social Services for many years, including disadvantaged persons who have enjoyed greater comfort, safety, and well-being due to her efforts on their behalf. And whereas benefit program workers in Madison County have gained far greater training, knowledge, and experience in their field owing to Elizabeth Roebuck's leadership, mentorship, and guidance. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the members of the Madison County Board of Supervisors extend their deep appreciation and heartfelt thanks to Elizabeth Roebuck for her dedication and service to Madison County and recognize her significant professional achievements on behalf of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And be it further resolved upon majority vote of the membership in attendance and upon passage, this resolution be recorded and spread upon the permanent minutes of the Madison County Board of Supervisors, and that it be sent to Elizabeth Roebuck to share with her family. Is there a second?
Was that a motion? Okay,
That's
second.
a motion.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right. County reports. Guess we'll start over here. Brian? Oh. Good. John Shearer?
Also, PDH numbers for COVID positive folks in Madison right now, as of today, they show 70 total, 5 in the hospital and 1 fatality so far since March. 5 in the hospital, and 1 fatality, that number's remained constant for months now. So we're pretty much on even keel there.
How long are
Could not tell you, sir. Could not tell you. I guess we'll just get letting people know who's got what. Still in phase 3 requirements. The governor's and that's gonna be here for the foreseeable future. Everybody's kind of knows what's going on down in Hampton. He's increased requirements down there, restrictions, so I don't see him loosening up the rest of Virginia. Hampton. More to come on that. There's also discussions ongoing about sheltering during the pandemic. If we have a hurricane come up through here and we have to put people in a shelter, how are we going to deal with people who are isolating from the virus? So that's an ongoing thing, back and forth, a lot of input, a lot of brainstorming that to try to keep people at least separated. There's also discussions about going on about closed pod agreements for when a vaccine does become available. So points of dispensing, agreements on how we're going to dispense the vaccine, who gets it, how much of it is there available, all that stuff is in the works right now. So, but the key word is when the vaccine comes in. Also, there's work being done on the county emergency operations plan, which is due in September. And there's also a lot of people looking at the CARES Act money. That's a lot of money, and just a lot of moving pieces and parts and requirements that, quite frankly, it's pretty daunting if you look at all the restrictions. So, same old thing: wash your hands, watch your distance, and wear a mask.
Any questions for John Shearer?
Also, on this side note, our PPE, our stock is good. We just got some shipments in from B-Dan and Amazon, so we're giving that out.
All right. Noah?
July was a busy month, 154 calls, 9 minutes was our average response time. We're seeing an increasing number of multiple calls occurring within the same hour. Usually it's 2, now we're seeing 3. We're full staff, everyone's healthy. That's all I got.
Lauren? We're glad to see you. What do you have going on in the registrar's office?
Not too much. We just had getting stuff ready for November, which seems like it may be crazy. The Center for Voter Information just sent out some absentee or vote by mail applications to everyone, so that's causing a lot of confusion. But the office is pretty good.
All right, Brian Gordon?
I got several things. We're all aware of the Code Red emergency response system that we use here in the county to notify everybody. I was reached out to by another company by the name of HyperReach. about 2 months ago. I did a demonstration with them. HyperReach does everything that Code Red does, with a few additions. Long story short, we pay $11,250 a year for Code Red. HyperReach is $57.50 a year for virtually the same service. There are a couple of drawbacks. A large portion of the community has already signed up for Code Red for emergency response and weather warning. We have to redo that countywide. We have to do a type of public outreach to get those folks back in line with HyperReach being where they're on the Code Red and decide to go that way. But it does do the automated storm warning, just like we get now. It does push community notifications that we do now. It also will give us a hotline to establish for people to call in and get additional information about whatever's going on, flood, coronavirus, whatever. But it does give us that capability, but we do not have that right now. I just want to get the board's opinion on this about switching from Code Red to HyperReach. Remove the cost savings, but in some of the drawbacks from the community outreach.
Anybody have strong feelings on this? If you think that's the direction to go, then
There's only one agency in Virginia that has HyperReach. I have talked with those folks, they love it. Also talked to somebody who was able to switch from Code Red to HyperReach. She had nothing to say. So, on paper, it looks like a good thing.
what would be your plan to roll it out to the public to get people to switch from the Code Red system to the HyperReach?
What my intention would be is to sign with these folks prior to losing Code Red, to have that outreach done when Code Red goes off. And that's October. And that comes up. So I've got a fair amount of time to notify Code Red that we won't be renewing, to renew with this, and to also provide an overlap period to get people on board with the notifications.
We have a hard time, Chris, writing agreement that we should support Brian with the HyperReach. There you go.
Okay. Second thing is another one, so, GeoCom is our current mapping solution in 911 center. We have two servers feeding that system in our system, in-house system, they're about $14,000 a piece. They will be coming into life this year, 2021, so we're about to drop right around $20,000, between $20,000 and $28,000 on two new servers. GeoCom has come out with a cloud-based service. It is actually cheaper maintenance-wise annually than we're paying right now. That service, we'd have to upgrade our server, but it's like a $500 server versus $20,000. It looks good. I've done several demos with it. My staff has done several demos with it. It does everything we're doing now and then some. It's integrated with Google Earth, so the aerial images will be real time. It's real time. $8,600 a year versus $12,700 a year. Minus a setup fee that GeoCom will pay. So that's I've got the money in the budget to cover that already. I just want the board's opinion on that because I may need a appropriation on that. Potentially, may not come down to $5,000.
You have comments on this, Howard? Does anybody want to test Brian Gordon's expertise on this?
It's not very often I come to you say them all.
No. Yes, that's correct. All right, I think you're good on that one. Go with that.
All right, now, last thing is I apply for a PSAP education grant every year. It's $3,000. We won't use it for conferences, things like that. Sports conferences got shut down this year. So basically, I have $3,000 set to educate my people. I've got two people that take communication training officer classes, and one of them set the supervisor class. I have permission to spend roughly $2,000 to be reimbursed in a grant for these classes.
Educating our people. What do you think we're going to say no to this? I mean, it sounds good. I mean, does anybody have any problem with this? I mean, continued ed is a fantastic thing for everybody. I mean, good job.
All I got right now.
Does anybody have any questions for Brian on how you save this a substantial amount of money, hopefully?
You want a radio update?
Yes.
I've got a meeting with VOF tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. To talk with those folks. I'm very encouraged by their language and their rhetoric. I've already reached out to a couple of contacts I had. They set up this meeting with a lot of encouraging words in their email. I feel like it's going to happen. That's the last site that we need to nail down. Beautiful Run is good to go. They're doing detailed design work for it now, engineering. Parks and Rec, they're doing detailed engineering for that now, and Blake as well. Once we get Hughes River nailed down, the sites will be concrete. We can get civil work on those, and that's what's going to take the time. And once we get that done, we're already starting to order infrastructure for the sites themselves.
Any questions for Brian on the radio station? Other than the month delay based on COVID, are we still somewhat in the right timeline, scope of work timeline?
It's too early to tell. It depends on how quickly this DLF thing goes with the site. If that goes fairly quickly, I feel pretty confident that we can stay within 1 to 2 month time frame of where we're starting. COVID did definitely slow it down. There's no doubt about that. With engineers and meetings and things like that, not people not being able to travel. But we are still in a fairly good spot. The biggest thing is nailing down the fourth site.
Any questions? All right, Ms. Lau.
Not a whole lot, we've just been busy, still recording, things are selling, we're running into things, and that's been a real busy part for us. The judge has, done 2 meetings, to be able to do jury trials, I'm sure Liz will tell you about that, but, he's come up with a plan, the only thing is exactly what has to be approved. Some of the things are some more technology things that are probably gonna be needed. I've been trying to get some prices for y'all for the CARES, for the use CARES money. I'm probably the most technology challenged person in this room, so it's been a little hectic and a little challenging for me, but we're working on it, and as soon as I get some prices.
Thank you. Any questions from Ms. Lau? All right, Mike Mosco or Mike Fisher, who is from the Planning Commission today?
Okay,
All right,
but you weren't asleep at 2 o'clock in the morning. The short past, the planning commission is going to look at what went well and what did not go well. So I will stay on that. We're going to continue to update the planning commission bylaws. And I'd like to, on Friday, because the Culpeper Star Exponent had a Culpeper called special meeting to review solar policy. They don't have a very good ordinance. Mike Moscow, Paige, and I worked on it for at least 2 years. You signed off on it. I solicit your support to go back and read it now. Because I'm going to ask Mike to put that on the agenda. Our next meeting, the workshop is the 19th of August. There's a lot of things that have changed in solar, and one of the things the state of Virginia is doing basically what they did with vineyards and breweries. They want it, and they're shoving it out here to encouraging us localities to give machinery tax-free. And there's 3 of them going in Culpeper. I was talking to someone yesterday, a new person, and he told me that he had just been approached by someone that, because we have a transmission line, if everybody doesn't know that, it comes across the Rapidan River and runs right up to you. So again, if you're interested, the Planning Commission workshop is Wednesday the 19th, 6:30. Thank you.
any questions for Mike? Mike Mosco, you have anything to add?
I think that's Trish covered everything.
Very good, very good. Ms. Barry, welcome.
Hello. As Leah mentioned, we are in the ongoing process of getting a approved plan for the resumption of jury trials. That is due to the Supreme Court about a week and a half, and then they've got to turn it around to be approved by the 3-judge panel. It sounds like they've already rejected some, so there's no guarantees that anything will be approved. But I think we do have a pretty good plan that will allow us to continue to have them in the main courtroom. We looked at alternative locations across the county, even considered using this room or high school gymnasium. And once you start factoring in kind of the little details of parking, security, internet access, all of the things that we now need to run trials. There's a reason that we have a courthouse, is really what it boils down to. So we look forward to that happening. As Lena mentioned, she is busy working on trying to improve some of the technology. As you know, we are trying to limit the transportation of inmates. And so we are using CDRJ's video link. For those of you who are not familiar, CDRJ covers about 5 different jurisdictions plus 4 federal courts. So a lot of times when we try to get time on a video call, they offer Ms. Lau 9 a.m. or 3:30. And we have court at 9:30 and at 1:30, and our attorneys may or may not be able to accommodate those times. So being able to have one in our courtroom will allow for the court reporter to not have to separate and go back and forth, will allow for her to not have to go back and forth, and allow the whole process to run a lot smoother. I need to talk to Kevin about a fun fact I found out today that might be helpful for the jail board. But that's one thing that we're working on. I am overjoyed with the excitement that we now have Wi-Fi in all 3 courtrooms. It's only been something I've asked for 5 years. But we have it. In addition to that, Wade and I now have tablets that we can take to court. As part of that, I'm sure discussed as part of the CARES Act, cameras from the sheriff's office. That played heavily into our decision to get this. And also, as you know, are in the procurement process of a case management system. Determining how the county decides to spend the CARES money will help us determine kind of what sort of case management system we go with. We want to make sure that we pick one that integrates well with the sheriff's office system so that can be as seamless as possible. And I'll talk more about that when the appropriate time. We are also ongoing with a Orange County, Madison County drug court. I imagine it will end up being a bit like the drug court in Suffolk, where they started out with Suffolk County and then the other 2 jurisdictions will join in as it moves along. But that is in the very early phases. We are going to start meeting about every 2 weeks to go through those details and get that ironed out before we come back and present. And as Ms. Locke says, we're also still doing gun permits. So I don't think that there's anybody left that doesn't have a concealed weapons permit. But if you don't have one, I'm happy to review your application and move on from there. The little known person stuff. Also with me today is Wade Gilbert, the deputy Commonwealth attorney. We've heard me say nice things about him before, and here he is. Thank you.
Welcome, Wade. Anybody have any questions for Larissa or Wade, I guess? All right. Thank you. Greg K.
Well, working with DDAC, just trying to figure out what they're gonna do due to COVID, trying to have ACOs for training. Are required every 3 years to get 15 hours of training. 8 hours of those are supposed to be in the classroom, 7 hours online. Due to COVID, they actually lifted those restrictions. All of them. Actually had 2 trainings this week on the tethering law and the dangerous dog division. And spoke to the fence company last week. We're supposed to go in a new play yard that's in the bottom of the field at the animal shelter, hopefully by the end of this time. And continue to work on policies, and I can discuss that as well.
All right, thanks. We're going to get to that here shortly, aren't we? All right. Anybody got any questions for Greg? No. What would you like to say about the animal control policy, Greg K?
We should have a copy of it. We was on page 57 in the packet. So you'll see this is totally different than what y'all actually reviewed in the past. We went through 21 pages down to 7. I just listened to everyone's concerns, questions, and feedback that we had on the previous policy, and just decided to reach out to other local agencies to see what their policy and protocols were for animal control. My main purpose for this policy was, in case Greg or Ned is no longer here, whoever comes up next can look at this policy and know exactly what to do if they have a question. I don't feel what we have in place now addresses that. And you'll see with this policy, I've added some categories that the current policy does not address, such as training that's required for animal control, how animal control will handle dangerous or vicious dog, what to do regarding animal bite, even larceny of animals. Even though this is 7 pages instead of 21 pages, I still feel that this is more detailed and pointed for animal control. So I just want to run it by you, get the approval. If it's okay with y'all, I'd like to move forward with it. We can go to trash it. Just to see what y'all say. I'd like to get any comments from Sean, Alyssa.
Greg, what's the title of it's under his monthly report? Go to his monthly report and it's under that.
He's done a nice job. It's perfect.
Ms. Barry?
I thought Sean had said something.
He said that he thought Greg had done a nice job and
This is an excellent. I mean, it may be only 7 pages, but a lot of time and energy has gone into it. Greg and I met with Lieutenant Estes, as I've told y'all multiple times, one of my concerns is, as we have animal control and the sheriff's office separate, we want to make sure that we're all working together because we're all on the same team. And they were able to work together. They've got their plans going forward, with firearms and larcenies and those kind of things. Good. We've even done some joint cases since before this was approved. And it's really, really, really well done. We should all be proud of Greg for the work that he's done in this.
do you have any thoughts on this? Move along with it?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the standard operating policy for animal control dated July 22nd, 2020.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say aye. Thank you, Greg. Tracy.
I realized on my report that I left off the census. So people who haven't done the census yet, they'll be seeing census takers, they're wearing masks, they're following safety guidelines. And truthfully, CARES Act is a perfect example of why everybody should fill out their census information. We did receive the $10,000 Wander Love grant from Virginia Tourism. That's straight money, no match required for that. And last week we had several visitors, and one particular day, a couple from France who were staying here until the 15th, who said they were wandering. Another couple from Fredericksburg who literally said they were wandering from Fredericksburg, looking for a scenic road and a safe place to go to take their dog, which is expected with the grant covers. So I thought that was pretty good. Zoom meetings still. We have gotten some increased calls asking for virtual offices. We sent out, every time we get new information, we send it out electronically and we mail it. If they read the Virginia information from the governor, those applications were open yesterday. They are aiming to help about 7,000 businesses and nonprofits. However, half of the program funds will be distributed to eligible small businesses and nonprofits operating in low-income and economically disadvantaged communities, which we are not considered. So that's important to note. And if any of those businesses have received PPP or EIDL loans, they cannot apply. We got some extra information about daycares that I sent out as well. We had a VEDP site characterization Zoom call. Had a tourism committee meeting. Those minutes are on the website. Sending out events as usual. ribbon cutting for Old Rec parking lot on the 30th, and a farewell for Lieutenant Flynn that afternoon. The new superintendent is Patrick Kenny, and he'll also be the superintendent for Cedar Creek and Bell Road. Hope that was interesting. I'm attending a Commonwealth Connect Zoom meeting with another incoming, and we shared the IDA ad, Jack did, and reported all of our complaints about the new procedures to VETA, to the state. And after some reminding and some pleading, 3 people did fill out the forms, but we have not received any new applicants. I'll have to work on that. That's gonna be a tough sell right now, I think. Some good news, DIY, the business that does granite and cabinets across from Shelby, they are now occupying the space, the warehouse space at the old Jim Carpenter building. And we have 2 really solid leads on the Seville Road building, the box and box outlets. So that's exciting. So with all that being said, I did look into the GHCD grant. I talked to MJ about community block development grants. Those are going to be more narrow, a lot more paperwork that we don't have the manpower to do. They don't cover as much. So basically my request for CARES funds for recovery grants for Madison businesses still stands.
All right, anybody have any questions for Tracy? All right, let's move on. Consideration of approval of this, yes, ma'am. No, I apologize. Normally, as a finance, you're all segregated out. MJ, what do you
I
have?
don't have finance section.
I realize that. What?
So I have 3 things I want to talk about. One, we had a lightning strike at 302 Road on July 22nd. It damaged, it went both through electric and telephone lines. It damaged 2 telephones, which were worth $250 a piece. 1 computer screen, 1 laptop, 1 fax machine, Bruce's personally owned computer, which is ruined, 1 network switch, and it damaged 2 telephone lines, which Verizon replaced. Fortunately for us, our ANS contract covered parts and labor on the network switch. And
You're here.
Oh.
All right, MJ,
Oh,
talking to him like,
Okay.
here, take that.
do you want me to start over again?
Yeah, start with the lightning strike.
Okay,
All
we
right.
had a lightning strike on July 22nd at 302 Thrift Road. It damaged, as in complete loss, 2 telephones that cost $250 a piece, 1 computer screen, 1 laptop that we just bought in last December, 1 fax machine, Bruce's personally owned computer, which he was using to do audio-visual editing, and 1 network, our network switch, which connects us to the rest of the county's network. We had a contract with ANS that covered both the labor and the parts for the network switch, and the laptop that was ruined was covered by a Dell protection plan. So net of all those things, our insurance claim, or what's recoverable, doesn't meet the $1,000 deductible. A couple things come up about this though. One is we had Jamie Wilkes look at our building after this happened, and we found out that none of the electrical outlets at 302 Thrift Road are grounded. I will leave someone else to decide what risk that poses, because I'm not sure I understand that. But it's not a good, it's not good to plug computer equipment into outlets that aren't grounded. And I forgot, one other thing it ruined was my big black box. It actually ruined the surge protector. It blew the surge protector too. So one question I have for the board, it decides whether or not it's safe to have ungrounded electrical outlets in the building we all work in, is I had told you before that Bruce has been using his own personal computer to do all this editing. And unfortunately, I've already talked to VACORP. It's not covered by VACORP, and Bruce doesn't have any personal insurance to cover it. So I'm asking you if you would reimburse him for the cost of his computer.
He was using it for county purposes.
Right, and we would have to take it out of contingency, so I'll bring that before the board.
Why?
We'll also get another one for.
For actual use.
For the-
Right. But isn't do not have that as part of it. All right, let's deal with it two parts here. One, does the board want to reimburse Bruce for his personal computer? Yes. Out of contingency.
Sorry,
What?
sorry.
Yeah, well, all right. Is that good enough, or do we need to make a motion on this? What do you want?
That's fine, I'll bring it before, so he can go, I told him to go ahead, I would talk about this, he would go ahead and buy it, and then I'll put a supplement in through the next board.
The second one, since we are now doing all of this, GoToMeeting, Vimeo, and I'm sure we're doing something else that I'm missing. Is there not a, yeah, here it is, right here. Computer and software on the list for $2,000 out of CARES. So we should be covering that very, very shortly. And then we'll get him a computer. You don't have to use your personal one, and then we're ready to keep on doing all this audio visual editing. All right, moving on.
Okay, so the next thing which Tracy brought up is, the subject came up, and it was originally brought up by Boys and Girls Club, that there was a potential to get CDBG funding to help them because they have a big need. CDBG has their own CARES funding, but after several, at least one discussion, daycare is not their priority right now. So we really found that for both Madison Learning Center and for Boys and Girls Club, the CDBG funding is really not, it's probably not worth the effort. They did, and I don't know how Tracy feels about this, but they are familiar with this community investment collaborative, whatever it's called, the organization in Charlottesville that that Tracy is going to use for her small, and there is a possibility that we could get funding through CDBG for that, but I'm just putting it out there. It's something that's available. I don't know what's involved. I don't know whether there's more strings or not. I can tell you that I think that some of the other localities that are working with them right now have gotten CDBG funding.
And that's where I'm getting my information.
Okay,
And they
all
are
right. So
and their finance persons have physically write checks to landlords, and I don't think that's something we want to do, even using CDs. And she regrets doing it. So, and she has a staff.
All right.
okay.
Doesn't sound good.
So the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, without hopefully boring you to tears, something called OMB Uniform Guidance, which means that everything that you've seen related to CARES Act funding requirements addresses a very narrow aspect of rules related to spending federal money, which is allowable costs. What are you allowed to spend this money on? And there's still a lot of questions about that. But there are a lot of other requirements related to spending federal money that are defined in OMB Uniform Guidance. In fact, the last guidance put out by the Treasury on July 6th actually gives the sections of OMB Uniform Guidance that are relevant or applicable to the money that we just had the public hearing on. The first thing, and probably the most important thing, is there is a requirement to establish and maintain an effective system of internal controls over all federal awards. I'm not going to go into all of these details. I gave the board this handout. The first colored picture on here is a basic requirement of a good system of internal controls. That applies equally. Incidentally, this system is the exact same system that we should be using in the county. It applies, it's a general rule. You can apply it anywhere. You can apply it to a government, you can apply it to a private business, you can apply it to a nonprofit. Same rules everywhere. I think that this might be useful information for you. I'm not going to go into it anymore, but I do feel like this is an area that maybe we should be looking at more closely.
All right.
In addition to that, there are also procurement standards. First of all, there's a prohibition on purchases from debarred or suspended federal contractors. I have, for the large dollar amounts that have already, where purchase orders have already been signed, what I have given is, right now, I gave it to Terry, but I don't she's not here anymore, so I have to give it to somebody else. There's a federal system called sam.gov. And I can give any employee who's planning on making major purchases access to that system. They can go into the system and they can find out whether the vendor they're trying to buy stuff from is either a debarred or suspended federal contractor. To Noah's credit, he's already done that. And that's where we've done most of our major procurement right now. But we need to make a habit of doing this. There's also rules on procurement for what they call micro purchases, small purchases, and large purchases. I don't have, right now, I can't tell you in detail what all those rules are. Micro purchases is anything under 10,000. Small purchases is anything from 10,000 to 250,000, and large purchases is over 250,000. There's also just rules on disbursements to subrecipients. That means if we give money to anyone out of house, anyone that isn't in our CAF, so it doesn't matter whether it's a nonprofit, it doesn't matter, I think it probably applies to the town, it doesn't matter, something like VESA, all of them. There are rules that we have to meet before we give them a cent. So that the pages in my handout that I gave you are the specifics of what have to be in a sub-award agreement. I'll just tell you, you have to provide identifying information about the award. You have to indicate what the required terms and conditions of award are. You have to evaluate the subrecipient's risk of non-compliance to determine appropriate monitoring procedures. So for example, if you're going to give money to a nonprofit who has a substantial amount of experience using federal dollars, you probably would want to have different monitoring procedures in place than for somebody who's never gotten federal money before. So what I would recommend as the next steps, and really, I mean, we need to start doing this before we spend or commit much more money. We need written procedures applicable to all county personnel involved in CARES Act expenditures. This includes decisions made about allowability, procurement, payment, accounting and reporting, and records retention. We also need, for disbursements to be made to outside entities, we need to evaluate, and I guess that probably means me, what the next steps should be. At a minimum, we need to have written agreements. I assume, Sean, do you want to be involved in those sub-award agreements? Because they're basically a legal agreement.
Prefer to review drafts rather than starting whole cloth, just because I'm not.
Okay, so I have, one of the things that I did is I subscribed to a federal grants subscription service that provides access to all sorts of research material, complete uniform guidance. It also is a grants database for, like, if you want to go out and apply for a grant. And the cost it's like 20, it's in the numbers that I gave you. The cost is a little over $2,000 a year. I gave both Brian Gordon and Noah Hillstrom access to that because they were both interested in it as well. But one of the reasons I joined this service is because there's all sorts of templates and draft documents that you can use. You don't have to reinvent anything from scratch. So that's where I would recommend starting out for these sub-award agreements.
So you're saying this website that you're now a member of,
right,
has a lot of the policies and sub-agreements already in place that we can kind of mirror and steal from so that we can adopt them into our current policy.
That's why I spent the money.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think $2,000.
So, and then the other thing I would say is,
How much it cost to join that?
it's like, it's in here somewhere. It's in the, I think it was like $2,200. But you know what, the truth is if Brian or Noah can get a federal grant out of it, it pays for itself like many times over.
Yeah.
They're nodding in agreement,
Yeah.
Brian seems to be smiling. There will be a quiz on all of this stuff at the end.
Yeah, and that's
Update from you specifically.
that's all I have to say about this. But what I wanted to emphasize about this is there's a lot of work that has to be done related to compliance to this, and I'm a little concerned that we don't have much in place right now to do all this. And I don't mean personnel, but I mean, policy written. We don't have any communications to staff on what they need to be doing. I think we need a written policy on this, on every aspect of this.
All right.
Yeah, well, if the bad news is, I'm just like you, MJ. So where I work, I'm the gatekeeper on all that stuff. Everybody pours everything back into me on that. So I'm the one that has to look at the stuff and decide what sort of agreements I need, what sort of commitments I've got to get from the sub-grantees on all that
Right.
stuff. So, yeah, I agree. We should get some templates, and everybody should know they need to come back to the yous and the me's of the organization to vet that stuff before a commitment is made.
Right. So one of the issues is that we're now we're pretty in advanced procurement in EMS, not so much with the other items, but we really need to try to make an effort to get this out there before we go full force, full blast with procurement on this entire list.
Well, bottom line on this stuff is internally, anything we buy as a county, if we can't track it within our accounting system, then we need to set up a drawer and just every invoice that we're going to apply to CARES money is got to go in that thing, so under audit. And then you pass that same requirement down to a sub-grantee.
So first of
We've
all,
got to have it
we
all.
already have a system in place for the way we're tracking CARES funding right now is that every time someone sends a CARES reimbursable bill to us, they mark it on the invoice and it goes into a separate folder on a shared network drive.
Okay.
So we have that system
Scan it
in
in
place.
there.
Yes, it's scanned in. And we also have Fund 14, which is a fund that's set up totally to account for nothing but COVID related. It could potentially, if we got FEMA, we could use it for that, but it's COVID related. It's a grant fund. I think the bigger issue is that compliance starts at the very beginning of a transaction. And it starts with procurement. And procurement is not something that I control. So I mean, if somebody goes out and buys something, if the board says, I'm going to give you $50,000 to go out and buy electronics for the courthouse, I'll just use that as an example. And all the motions are gone through and paperwork is signed and we get a bill for $50,000 and somebody didn't check to make sure that that was not a federally debarred contractor, then at that point we have the obligation and we're going to have to pay for it out of our own money. So that's what I'm saying is we need policies that start at the very beginning, not after the fact.
But Mr.
Compliance
Hobbs, that's
isn't an
no
answer.
different than the policies we've got in place now, right? This is just different grant.
The issue is that we get tied up with all these different grants, they all have different rules. The federal ones are much more stringent, especially when it comes to facilities. I don't know what happens. Yeah, we do need to check, but this is not something we can do.
Right, it's
Okay.
just, we need to have something written in place and get it out to everybody that's involved in procurement related to CARES. That's why that list is important, that everybody needs to understand all this stuff.
Everybody is tied into this CARES. What about if we have a meeting in 2 weeks, come back with a proposal and some templates to some extent of a direction of how we're going to proceed in procurement and tracking all COVID-related costs that are attributed to, or that we're charging off to this CARES fund.
Right. Okay.
I mean, come back in 2 weeks and we go from there. There is a bunch, if you've got this website that has a lot of it already in place, that's exceedingly helpful. And also, we should be compliant with our current purchase order process that we have.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah, I think that our purchase order, it wouldn't be that it would be above and beyond what our current, it's not that anybody isn't doing anything in compliance with our current purchase order process, procurement policy. It's that there's probably more rules you have to follow than what's in our current policy.
This needs to be tracked in a different way. So we need to modify our current policy and make sure that compliance can come out and have a clean audit.
Right.
Like we've had in the last several years. Greg, you got anything on this?
I do not, thank you.
Bob, anything on this?
Only that, we need to find a way to keep things more on top. So, yes, we can apply it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Jay, what else do you have?
Well, having an appropriation is a big help. Because instead of tracking it all manually, I can track it on the general ledger. One of my problems has been, since we got this money, that because I didn't have appropriations on the books, we had to charge everything to Fund 10, and then we have to journalize it over into a separate fund. So hopefully, that was the main goal in getting that appropriation done today, is so that Candace can actually start coding things to the right place.
All right. While we're here, anybody else got any questions on these topics? Oh. Brief summation. How is the IT project going?
We have a meeting. I think we've come to a final decision on what we want to do. I think the idea is to bring that to the board in a closed session at the next meeting, so we can talk about, selection of vendors and things like that. But certainly, we've gone in a lot of directions, and I have to tell you, we are probably going to run slightly over budget on that contract because a number of different directions we've gone, including looking at software that wasn't originally, that wasn't part of the RFP process.
If you can vet this out, this is a major expenditure, going a little bit over on the cost of studying this, but getting a product that will last and it's what we're looking for. I personally don't have any.
They'll be nominal.
I mean, we're talking about a very sizable investment on it.
I have nothing but good things to say about Think IT. I think they've been an invaluable resource to us, and I hope they continue to be that way.
Commissioner, do you have anything to say? Going well? You don't want to slow the process down anymore?
We all want to get started.
All right, okay.
Right, could you announce to the folks that the meeting audio is back?
All right, the go-to-meeting audio is back. What, you want me to write this on here? You want me to type it, or you want me to?
We can't see them. So they're on Vimeo now.
Vimeo people, the go-to-meeting audio is back up and running. Does that work for you, Lou?
Yes, sir. Thank you
Very
very
good.
much.
Back in business. All right. Ms. Todd, tell us about the random drug screening policy that hopefully we're about done with. Yes, bond proceeds. Ms. Costello, back to you.
Okay, so I have a little bit of confusion about this because there's actually two separate pieces to what's in this board package.
Page 130.
All right.
So I guess that what has been decided, let's talk about the Madison primary school first. What the county has decided is there is a project manager that the school board has hired to manage the construction project. He's called the clerk of the works. All of the invoices that come from vendors get approved by the clerk of the works. Then they go to the school board CIP committee, which currently Jack sits on it, Clay sits on it, Cardy sits on it. I don't know who the other, I think 2 school board members sit on it. I'm not sure. Right, okay. So then the school CIP committee approves the invoices. And then after that, both the approved invoices go to both the school board in total and the board of supervisors for approval. So the first page is just seeking, these bills have not been paid or checks cut based on the timing, because we didn't get these until last week. But the first schedule seeks approval for the actual primary school project costs. In terms of, right, well, FY20 and FY21, the way we have arranged this is because the loan closed, I think it closed on 6/26. It was just, from a bookkeeping point of view, it is much, much simpler to have Tina close out 1 year the way she was doing it before. So Tina has continued to pay bills related to FY20. FY21 bills will be paid by my department. I think probably there's going to be some more FY20 bills, just looking on what, I would anticipate one more round of FY20 bills, and then we should be totally into FY21. So I guess the first page is seeking approval from the board on just the Madison primary school bills.
We have 2 motions.
Right. So the second thing, and this is something I didn't understand, is right now the way we're handling bills is we're cutting checks off of the county's bank account. And then periodically, I am instructing the treasurer who has access to the loan proceeds account to transfer a reimbursement amount from the bond proceeds account to the county's main checking account. I guess, I mean, I'm not sure. I could tell you in other counties I have seen where that has not gone to the board for that approval. So if that's what you want to do and that's the policy you want to follow, that's fine. We can just keep it. The only problem I have with that is it's much easier to keep track of bond proceeds if you do it to coincide with the end of the month. So if based on this schedule, the way we're paying bills, I wouldn't necessarily be able to do that. But right now, what this is showing is once we pay the school board bills, and there's also an unpaid bill on the radio project that we need to transfer. Well, I don't know, how much do we need to do? We need to transfer another $1,116,307.96 from the SNAP account into the county's bank account as a reimbursement.
All right. Who has questions for MJ on that?
That's the part that the transfer from the SNAP account into the checking account is not something that we approve.
But we do need to approve both.
The invoices, yeah.
The FY20, that's $491,025.14, and then a separate one to cover the FY21 charges of $620,419.33. But the process that we've got going through all these boards, these checks and checks and checks, and you're checking and Tina's checking, both Tina's, I assume, are checking at this point. From the school side, I don't think it's the right way to do it. I mean, it is a little bit more than what we need, but in the grand scheme of things, it keeps it right in front of us and lets us keep track where we're at.
And the good news, MJ, I mean, I asked Skanska the other day, like these invoices were dated July 31st, and I asked them, okay, so what's the payment terms, net 30? So they're really not, the payment's not due till August 30th or 31st.
Yeah, something else I would point out, which I have a follow-up call or a meeting or email conversation scheduled with both Tina Kropp and Skanska, which is that the project cost summary data that they're giving you in that CIP meeting does not correspond with what's on our books. And I need to find out. I mean, it's not uncommon. I mean, it's not uncommon for that to happen because he may not be reconciling to a general ledger, but he is definitely missing things off of that list. And we need to get that list. The list that's presented to the school board CIP committee should be understandable in terms of the county's general ledger. And right now it's not.
Let me say for the public's knowledge that these two invoices that we've got here were the ones that I saw the other day in the CIP meeting. So if there's nothing further,
Please.
I make a motion to approve the payment of the above invoices in the amount of $491,025.14 for the primary school project. Amounts to be charged to fiscal 2020 and paid by the Madison County School Board. All amounts will be reimbursed with bond proceeds.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. One more for FY 21.
All right, very well. I make a motion to approve the payment of the above invoice in the amount of $620,419.33 for the primary school project. Amounts to be charged to fiscal 2021 and paid by the Madison County Finance Department. All amounts will be reimbursed with bond proceeds.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Can I follow up with one question?
Yes.
It'll be quick. So do you want the same, because obviously we have 3 projects that are being financed with bond proceeds. Do you want the same process to happen with those 2 other projects where you want the board to approve them before we pay them?
At least when the, absolutely.
Well, it'll show up in the financial report. It'll show up in the checklists, but so will these, actually. So will anything else we pay. Sorry.
Smaller projects, I'd like to see kind of in front of us. What is that?
I'm good, ignorant. Yeah.
I would like to see some of these numbers in front of us, and it's very easy, not have to dig through 1,000 pages to get to on. I mean, these are big projects, we would like to track them.
Okay.
That work for, yes, sir.
The purpose of all this was to have a clear report, everybody's concern on where the bond money might be. 3 years ago, there were still rooms from the county to the money went to the courthouse and high school budget. So it might look like we're going to react this time. We're not going to have a problem with not having good bookkeeping with everybody. That's the source of on the school project, school folks are really can say out loud and clear, but it sounds like things are going swimmingly out there. We've got a few change orders that they've worked through, things are looking good. We're actually ahead of schedule. That doesn't jinx the project, but things are looking up.
Looks great out there. We walked through it the other day, they've got some of the inside walls up, they're putting in the plumbing in the ground. They're moving right along, and it was clean beyond what they're working. Doing a great job. Really good. It'll be something nice when it's all over. All right, anything else on that? Now, let's go to random drug screening policy. Ms. Hobbs?
Yes, sir. We're aware of the background on this. At the last meeting, the board asked us to take another look at it, and there were some comments from EMS staff about the content of the policy. We went through all that with them and through a committee class process and fixed what we could. That's all articulated in the document. It doesn't water it down, in our opinion. The 2 things we did not, we're not able to address was this idea of for all county employees, subject to mandatory screening for all drivers. So that, we just couldn't go there. There was a suggestion that, by, having this apply to safety, it does, translate targets to the other employees, which of course is not the, just going to look at that. All this has been through, program. I think the package is ready for approval. Like, Mr. Gordon, Mr. Richmond, to comment on the
Gentlemen. And there you go. Well, we got the 2 thumbs up. That's what works. We've talked about this for several months now. If y'all want to.
I move to approve amendments to section 6.4 of the personnel policy, alcohol and drug-free workplace as proposed. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Todd, back to you. Authorization to bid for county administration.
Yes, made available through the website, the drawings for the renovation project. The documents are from us. My sense is we're about 99 and 44, 100% there when it comes to being finalized. We've asked for permission to get bid on this with the understanding that before anything is awarded, we have to come back to the board, which it would, of course, because of the appropriation structure we're under. At that point, we'll have a good financial rundown on where we do all this. The only caveat would be, I do want to ask the architect to sit one more time and folks will cover this building so that if there are any final questions on the finishes and cabinetry and colors or what's going to happen, they can be in direct communication with the architect. And if it's any individual members of the board want to sit down on that, that's not good. I think we're ready to go to bed almost. Makes sense. The architect did offer to come speak to the board and make another presentation if you'd like, but my sense is you'd rather wait until it's here before having another comments.
I think that's the best use of our time in there. Everybody fairly confident with going to bid on this? Questions, thoughts? You don't want to.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board authorize staff to advertise the Madison County Administrative Center renovation project for construction contractor bids with the understanding that the decision on the award will be made by the board at a future meeting.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. Notification project, Mr. Dobbs.
Yes, this is a project that's been around almost 3 years here in Madison. Two county administrators, 3 or 4 county attorneys, how we want to look at it, but we're almost see the finish line on the site. We're aware that the UNICO document that came in back in June, through that, had a lot of conversations with a lot of the staff, different divisions and changes. Of course, found some different items that we have suggested that might be amended. I'm not aware of any that were given more pause, but the enforcement package. What I would ask is that you take this and ask for one more staff level review of everything so that the board will be able to order a public hearing in the second September meeting. We get comments back before the next meeting.
Seems like a plan. That seems like a good plan. Let's be done with this one too. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Move on with that.
I guess the two things we need to work on is the review of the animal control ordinance and various department and I guess a very thorough review of the subdivision and zoning ordinance by Mr. Webb. You should know that they've been really busy.
And with our agreement, do we want to proceed with starting putting together the advertisement for public hearing for the second meeting in September? That'll work for everybody. Get it on the calendar and be done.
You have to add anything in, I see there's more where you want to do.
Do it. There you go. All right, now, here's money. Please.
Would, there's some in the back.
These are my front box.
The idea is that, we've got this, already put it out, it's $2.3 million worth of money that's supposed to be spent on innovation work. An awful lot of ideas on how money can be spent. We've seen a lot of this before, but just on the list.
Mr. Hobbs, could you place that microphone? That's good, thank you.
Is this better?
Better.
I don't know if it's on. I don't think it's on. I don't hear him.
Here, take this one. Here you go. Try that one. Try it. All right.
All right, so the idea is to work down the list and get, I guess, a consensus from the board so that we can further develop this, and then we can do transfers and actual procurement following through that. The coding here is what's in green, I think is generally acceptable. Would point out the ones that are in the tan there that you might want to stop and talk about, in my opinion. The ones at the top of the list are more or less ready to go. The ones under potential expenses to claim, they're ones that we ought to choke up on and have a little more detailed conversation. So there's a triage here, if you will. This list is as of this morning. I'm sure I've got emails in my inbox that want to tinker with this a little bit. It's quite something to keep up with this, with so many people involved and different rules. And we do get better ideas from time to time. So, Mr. Chairman, do you want to work down through the list? And
Let's start with circuit court, video conferencing. Anybody have any problem with that?
The other thing is that 15,795, it could go up to the 20,000. I'm not asking for 15 and 20. I'm just saying that first price that I got was 15,000.
All right.
Because we may have to go a little bit more than what we first anticipated. It could go as much as 20. I'm not asking for that.
So, all right, Ms. Left, would you like to cross off the first 15,795 and just leave the 20K down? It's the fourth line down. We're crossing the first one off. Laptop for WebEx conferencing. Still need that. Everybody good? Speak up if you're not. Jury trial. Or please
Yeah, it's a
help me.
portable system that the court reporter would have to use if we had to move. It wasn't something I anticipated, but it is something that the judge was asking.
All right, don't like as much we can do about that one. Video conferencing, 20K, everybody's good on that one. We got rid of 15. Laptops for both your deputies. Still good on that, Brian? Everybody okay with that? Console replacement, I think we've all gotten with that. Don't worry, we're gonna get to the good one. Brian, we got a good one for you. Home internet connection. Yes,
Can I just
yes.
ask a question about this?
Why not?
As to why Brian has this and no one else does?
Yes.
So Brian was quarantined earlier this year, and during his quarantine, it was requested by, I don't know, Jack.
Yep.
To permit him to have home internet service, and the only way that we could provide that to him was to,
Got it, go.
the only way we could provide that to him was to make an annual commitment. So that's why we're still paying on that.
Yeah.
Brian's critical.
Yeah.
All right, let's
If something happens.
move on. Now we are giving you a hard time. What do you need 4 chairs for 40K for? I mean, what kind of chairs cost $10,000 a piece?
Now, leave him alone, that's my
That's a
typo.
lot.
That's on me.
I was able to, they're not cheap, I'm saying they're not really okay.
And you brought the price down again?
Yes, I did.
It's a good trend to keep going.
5,800.
All right, 5,000,
That's on the HVAC contract.
say it, 5,000, give us the number.
$5,836.
Still expensive. All right, 5,836.
As far as the consoles go, I have solicited 4 proposals through the procurement process, got all 4 back, and myself and my team members have come up with what we believe is a good solution. Pretty much on par with what we have there, but it is about a 9 to 10 week bill. So if we're gonna go through, something we have to do fairly quickly to get it in before the 30th. Right now, we did today, we're looking for first November.
But you've already done procurement.
Procurement's done. All I just told me. I'll give it to MJ, I'm sure I can make these questions.
Very good, very good. Anybody got any problem with that? Brian and his fancy chairs?
As long as it's not 40,000.
Yeah, we're much happier. You're on a good, you're on a roll tonight, that is no expensive. Ambulance 3 with Noah, like everybody's talking about that, that's a good one. Lucas chest compression systems.
So what happened was we, in Noah's idea, we knew that the board authorized ordering an ambulance, but we had to take the chest compression out for that. And once we realized that, then we could order the second one for the fourth ambulance and maybe get that here before Christmas. So that was the play there, to use as much of the CARES money for this ambulance purchase as we could.
All right, anybody have any problems with the hand-free CPR? Are they 50K a piece? So you're getting the compression device and life pack, 15 cardiac monitors times 2.
The cardiac monitor is like 35. The Lucas.
All right, and you're buying 2 of them. There you go. All right, anybody got problems with that? It seems like a crazy way to approve money. Crew outfits for respiratory protection for each crew member on shift. Everybody. The McGrath video laryngoscope. You need 6 of these.
Got it, thank you.
You already got them? So what's this, like post billing? All right, everybody good with post billing on this? EMS building physical distancing improvements, $7,000. What are you doing there?
We added 2 rooms to the main living area due to the social distancing of 24-hour staff. Completed today and signed off by the building inspector.
All right, everybody good? Uniform shirts. We need to buy Noah's, Mr. Fowler, a shirt for $90.
2 shirts and she appreciates it.
Forever. Happer batteries, you need 4 of them, 4K. Ventilators, lung protective ventilation for $54,500. Dell tablets for the 2 ambulances, M30 and M40. Their mount, that's going to cost $61.60.
Why something say that?
Yes.
We got a number of Dell tablets for Noah in conjunction with the desktop replacement project. And I'm not coming up with those guys needing to.
Need 2
So
more.
I would just like to get an accounting of all the ones that we bought already and where they are. Plus, there's already one, the 281, 159 already has the wrap that already has one of that cost building. The ambulance. The ones that the ambulances.
All right, Noah.
So if we could just hold off on that until we know where, I would like to know where all of the, because they were expensive.
What do you
I'd like
got?
to know where all of them are that we bought before we get
Sure, so there's 4 tablets that we have. The 2 new trucks plus the chief vehicle are the ones where we would need 2. The Delta of 1 is a response 1 right now, which would go into the replacement vehicle.
But why, doesn't the original replacement vehicle Doesn't that
so
already have on it?
the new ambulances have a cradle point, they'll docking station, but they're not with the tablet themselves.
All right. Does anybody have any problem with buying 2 tablets? Figure out where the ones that we just bought were, that's, we need to know. Response 1, a quick response vehicle replacement. This is replacing what, Noah?
The current response one, this is the one we applied for the grant, did not get it.
Is this the one, this is the pickup with the camper shell? There you go, we're replacing that. Everybody okay?
Now, one of our things on this is that John Shearer is eligible for a grant, and it may be $7,500, it may be $15,000. But what we would do is apply some of that money to this unit. So that's the current thought, anyway.
Good. EMS chief vehicles. Anybody got any problem with that one? All right, and that's a Tahoe, we understand. There you go. Cellular antenna and modem ×5 for every piece of vehicle, I guess. Monthly supplies, $15K. And that's, all right. Touchless plumbing, 20, and this is in the new part of this.
Yes, and this is just a guess, but the idea is now that once we go to bid, what we would do is take the fixtures out of the base bid package and buy those and store them and have the contractor install them later. Thought being if we could do it that way, we could apply CARES money to the plumbing fixtures for this building and the one down the hill, as opposed to using the bond money.
We got an issue with that. Replace entrance doors. Is this social services?
Yes.
All right, and Roger, I think actually got all that taken care of at this point. Courthouse plumbing with touchless features, $4,500. Ms. Lau.
The main thing would be the jury rooms. We're gonna have juries. We have to make sure that they're safe and they have to come for that. We just felt like that's a huge help for that. And Roger also felt like the public bathroom should definitely be.
I agree. I have a harder time with the touchless ones than I do the regular ones, but that's beside the point. $4,500, everybody good? Thompson Grant 361 annual subscription for grant database. This is your 2148, right? Already paid for, everybody good? Meeting broadcast recording system. 40K. This is new stuff, I assume, for the updated for the next.
And we don't have the final. Do we have the final?
Still waiting on one.
We only have one quote right now.
Right, but it's not gonna go. That will be everything, all your streaming, all your PA, all your audio visual, and all your contacts to the button.
Not gonna keep these speakers that are on the back wall. Not Phil. All right. All right. Everybody okay with that? Might as well buy it now. Computer and software to, and this is Bruce's new computer that the county will have, but we can do all the audio visual stuff to apply with these meetings. Courthouse Wi-Fi, all 3 courtrooms done, Ms. Barrett. Tremendous. What? Oh, good. What's the idea? Madison County building footprint structures. It would assist with 911 and dispatch to locate structures at site. Brian gives us the nod. Everybody okay with that? What do y'all think?
That's just an overlay on the GIS? Okay.
Reimbursing the volunteer rescue squad for the PPE that they have bought, 71, 72. Extra printing for public meetings, 4K, seems like a good thing. Hand sanitizer, dispensers, PPE wipes, sneeze guards, disinfectant services, face shields, cleaning services during jury trials, other items required for court operation, 48K. I can do that.
This is all over the map, but yeah, we need a pot of money to pay for PPE and whatever comes up.
Yes, sir. COVID-19 testing and testing events, 6K. How How much you spent the last time, John? Was that on snacks and drinks?
Well, that was a good deal right there, John. We all like that. Everybody good with that? School computers. Yes, ma'am.
So, that number, that 182, includes what they already spent in FY '20. And the school board has indicated that they do not want CARES funding for that. So that number should be, and the reason is because the school board, they've had their one meeting in August. They would need an FY '20 appropriation for this, and they would need to reopen their books to do it, and they don't want to do that. So the 182, they don't have FY '21 expenditures of 182. They had FY '21 expenditures of 124, 121. That's what they asked for, not the 182.
I personally, I think we should get them to open back their books.
You're daggone right.
That's 182K that we've got this federal money, there's doling out, and now we're doling out.
So the difficulty with doing that is that you only have until the end of August to make budget adjustments to the previous fiscal year. And they've already had their one meeting for August, and they didn't make that motion. And we can't force them to open up their books. If county did that on our side and they didn't do it on ours, on their side, then we would have a problem with the CAFR at the end of the year.
Well, there's financial accounting and then there's grant accounting. What we need to do is have these receipts in a file so that if we're audited, we know where the money goes and we can claim this money against the $2.3 million that we're drawing down. That's the what we need to worry about is covering their grant.
I think we either need to lean on them or we need to figure out some kind of mechanism to get them to take that 182 and move it.
They need to ask for a supplemental appropriation for FY '20 for what they spent in FY '20 for CARES.
Which is?
That there is no distinction between
196.
grant accounting and CAFR accounting. They have to be the same thing.
I got
In
it.
fact,
What do you got?
have a different.
58,492.61, right, MJ?
124, 129 is what.
FY '21. I'm talking about FY '20 to be 58,492.61 for $58,000 of money that we could move to the CARES fund and get it off the citizens' backs.
Why don't we check this off and we'll instruct staff to figure out a way to get the school board to open
They
the
don't
books.
have it.
But
They don't want it, don't give it to them.
yeah, but it's coming out of our pocket.
Yeah,
That's
it's
the
gonna-
thing, is that if at the end of the year, that normally they have like a carryover, that is unrestricted funding. This is exceedingly restricted funding. We might as well capitalize on the 58 so that we can utilize it in some other means. I mean, this is money that has to be used on CARES. And buying these computers directly as part of this current school year and what they're gonna have to do. Might as well utilize the restricted money before we utilize the unrestricted.
Did they get CARES money too?
They got, after the fact, it was like what did they say last night, 224 or something? Woodbury Forest picked up some of
There's 314 and they had to give 60 up to
There you go. We still should try to get them to open their books. 58K is a lot of money. Let's move on with it. Everybody good on this one?
So to be clear, in order to do this, in the next meeting, we need a letter from the Board of Supervisors, from the school board, asking us to make an FY '20 appropriation for the 58,202. Now, whether they can do that without another meeting.
Can't you just do it?
What?
Can't you just appropriate it? That's
No.
your request?
You do
Write
that.
a letter. Why don't we try to get in touch with Tina Croft,
See what she says on this.
and then we'll come back and we'll have something prepared at the second meeting to do a supplemental
I just want to
appropriation.
clarify something. If the board moves ahead with this, with that motion, without the school board making a corresponding motion, then what you end up with is you have a difference between school board books and county books at the end of the year, and that most likely will cause an audit problem. And it would be very unfortunate, in my opinion, to have an audit problem related to CARES Act.
Why don't we approve it, we'll work on it, and
at the second meeting, we should have something, we have enough time in between, we should be able to figure this out. And if at the second meeting, we don't want to approve it, then we can pull it off the list and it's not a big deal. That work? I would like to use restricted funds before unrestricted at direct Madison County taxpayer dollars. Remote access equipment and licenses, 100K for the schools, almost 101K. Everybody okay with that? Well, the remote access Verizon service billed monthly, 63,492.
A small issue with this is that, it's my opinion that, from reading some of the CARES Act guidance, that anything that's a service or a lease, billed monthly, we can't prepay for and expect the CARES money to apply. If it's equipment, some durable good or something we have to lock in for longer, then that's one thing. But if it comes as a monthly bill, that might not qualify unless the rules get amended, of course. And so this factors down what they put in their package. So please understand that if there's some sort of contract they have to get into with Verizon for special pricing, and I think this is the case, the county might have to pick up some fraction of this after Christmas.
That goes for any of these purchases of, going forward.
Services, yes.
Okay.
Sheriff wants gas masks for $37,808. Sheriff wants laptops for remote data entry, and that's in the cars, 50K. Okay. Laptop for mobile CAD. What? It's one laptop. Is the mobile CAD costing $18,130? Or
That's a licensing fee through Sunstone.
all right, so it's still just one laptop. This is actually licensing for mobile CAD. Is that correct, Brian?
Actually, laptops for 18,000.
What's the 50?
The 50K is the, one of the other, one of the licensing. and the other-
That's 15. It's 2 lines there. Yeah. Well, something's not right here. We need to figure out, we're either. Let's give him 50K, oh yeah, let's give him 50K, and we'll cross the 18 off, and certainly that should take care of it. That's a horrible way of doing it.
I think it's two different
What,
things.
you know what it is?
I think it's the original estimate I got from the first chart.
It's 50 or 18?
50. And I think it got down to the 18.
Oh.
I think it actually cost 18.
I have the original Excel chart when we first started asking around for them. Because I think it was just an estimation. And it came down.
We all want to, we need some clarity on this. Is everybody approving Jeff's of buying laptops for the sheriff's cars?
Yes.
Somewhere in between 18,130 and 50K. Yes. Well, let's figure that out and we'll go from there. Car mounts. It's gonna cost $68.49 just to lock these things into the cars. The licensing. Do I need that? Separation of network. The 50K, Troy Estes says the 50K is grant money that they have received and applied for. So figure out how much it's gonna cost and we can go from there. The separation of network from mobile CAD. What is that, Brian? What is the separation from network of network? Is it like a loaded program?
I have not spoken before about this, but I have to guess it's VPN.
It's VPN.
What's the product network services?
$8,400.
So the reason I have potential for DCGIS funding in here, if you remember at the top of the meeting, there was this list of potential sources of funding. The sheriff and his folks have applied for, I think it's on the order of a $50,000 grant. We aren't sure that's going to come in. The scheme is if that does come in and they don't put date restrictions on when the purchases could be made, we would use that more restricted money to pay for this and then free up the general, the general CARES money, if that makes sense. So we're trying to maximize the benefit here, yes.
Anybody got questions on that? All right. Here's another one. Body cameras for 5 years is $340, $185. Like Hobbs just stated, we can only basically pay for 3 months of this. So we're actually only approving $22,679. The SIM cards at $280.80. That's the same deal. Prorated out till December 31st. And then reimbursement to the town for their COVID expenses, $4,739. The one I asked Todd earlier today, and I know I'm going off, is with this, Ms. Mary and Wade, if we do body cameras, we're required to part-time or full-time assistant, full-time. Can we not prorate some of that salary to go into this?
It's a question of how far away we are from coronavirus, and it's starting to get
It's something we need to keep back up on our radar, that when we go down the body cam path, it is part of state code, we're gonna have to go down that direction. Correct?
Correct, and the current comp board salary for brand new is $56,697. I would ask that we even that out to 57 or 60. Players can.
What's the policy when it pertains to implementation of this in the middle of the year? Do we have to implement the assistant Commonwealth attorney immediately, or is it?
I think that it's a little squishy, but I will tell you, one of the reasons that policy exists in the state code is that the amount of time that we will be spending per case will go up exponentially. Now, that's a negative, and there are a myriad number of positives, and Wade and I are both here because this is something that we have wanted for 5 years, along with the Wi-Fi. A lot of dreams. But I cannot express to you how important it is that we have it. I also can't express, essentially what will happen is we will be taking a DUI that I could spend 10 minutes reading a report, 10 minutes talking to the deputy, and letting that be the end of it, to where I will now have to watch the entire hour to 2 hours. There are also some other discovery rules that go along with this that we will have to comply with. There's a mandate that any interactions between defendants, and I know that this is more information than you want, and I apologize, but I do think it's important that you understand this is not just something that the sheriff's office and my office is making up because we want more and more. It's that there, effective July 1st, there's a new code section that requires that any time a defendant is in custody at a place of detention, that we audio or visually record the interview or statements that he makes. And so we've worked with the sheriff's office and with Brian to get that covered for the intox room here at the sheriff's office in Madison, but there's still CBRJ. That code section will surely be expanded, and at some point it will include the backs of police cars. So it is, you're headed down a different path that will simply require this, and not only will it require our office to do it. So I guess to get back to your question, if the body cams deploy November 1st, I wouldn't say that we absolutely had to have one November 1st, but pretty darn close.
Thank you. Questions on that one? All right, we basically crushed out the top of this list, potential expenses to claim. 4-H, we talked about that before. The way that Brad Jarvis explained this to me is 4-H campus in Front Royal is actually owned by a foundation, and they need the revenue from these camp kids to keep it open. And the 7K will basically cover their operating expenses for a short period of time.
no, we do need to verify that what they're spending the money on qualifies for CARES money, but that's and to back MJ up on this is an external agency. We have to go through the whole business with
I
them.
mean, my recommendation was that these people that are, yes, there's some organizations that have asked for money, like, the rescue squad, they've got a bunch of receipts, they want to, that's pretty good. But for somebody who's basically asking for something prospectively, like, I would like to use this money in the future. You probably need a budget. At a minimum, you need a budget.
I think we should ask them, all of these outside organizations, for a budget. And the next one on here is the Boys and Girls Club. And the schools expressed how important they thought it was. I think it's even going to become more important. But to go from $62,000 to $125 seems crazy to me.
So first of all, they did give us a budget.
Good.
They gave us a 3-page letter on a budget.
What's
It was
inside?
a very long conversation with them.
Good.
There are long ways towards having what you need in subtle wording. But one of the reasons that they asked, there's 2 components to what they asked for. One is basically to fund a piece of their regular program that they have, the thing that they have, whether schools are open or not. And the other is to fund a separate program for all the like downtime because kids aren't in school. And they have in their budget, they have 2 separate budgets for each program.
All right.
That total $125,000.
That's the question. 125 where they got.
Yeah, and the reason, I
And
mean,
this is
the way
used
it's
to-
explained to me, the reason that they asked for the additional amount of money is because when they made their original request at the end of June, they didn't know what the school board's schedule was going to be. They didn't know that the school board wasn't going to be, that the schools wasn't going to have this rotating number of days based on age of how the in-class instruction.
All right. Does anybody have any trouble with that? I got a bunch of dumb questions, but I'll leave this one. Small Business Recovery Grant Program. You still gung ho on this, Tracy? There you go.
And if you guys would like me to add nonprofit if you were to be approved and prioritize it, we can do that.
All right, everybody good on that one?
So on that one, that's a local thing. We need to make very sure our program is set into the board's liking and our arrangements with, what's your group that circulates the money? CIC is good. So time's a wasting and we probably need to get that straight pretty quick. Tracy?
Yes, and they actually, they said if I were to get approval, we could start promoting next week. They could have it open by the 21st. Then there's a 2-week period in there for review, and then they take a week to award, essentially.
They also use consulting.
All right, you probably didn't hear that. We need to get a sub-award agreement with MJ, with that organization.
So my guess is because I've actually, so I had this conversation with the HCD about that organization, and they already had a number of the counties have already set up their programs with them. So my guess is that we could ask them for.
Steal a template.
Yeah. Right. That's for what somebody else asked them for.
I've already done.
Right, okay, so.
All right.
They have a contract.
Everybody game on 150K local business recovery grant program.
The $150,000 is mine. Tracy asked for between 100 and 200,000.
150 seems like good average.
Okay.
A lot of money.
All right.
All right, VASAD,
Base app.
Modified.
Thought we had
What
said
is-
we weren't gonna do that.
What is that?
Happy.
Yes, please.
Sir, I'm the director of District 9 base up there in Lake. And
Hey, Darren.
what I'm trying to get accomplished is due to the safety protocols and things along those lines. I have a wish list of 3 things. One being a video intercom system where people can come up, push a button, they'll be talking to us internally. We don't have face-to-face contact.
All right.
That's one wish list item. The second one is a pass-through Dropbox where we exchange documents without having contact face to face. That would have to go through our brick wall and it's be locking and that type stuff. And the third thing is we are doing classes virtually now. We're open, except we are by appointment only. Classes that we do for intervention for VASAP, Virginia Alcohol Safety Action Program. Yes, sir. I think I've
Got it. No, I'm sitting here, I'm like, what does this guy do? I got it now. Keep going. Sounds good.
And then the final thing is we do intervention classes for people come education, want to change behavior that got them in that situation. And we're currently doing that by Zoom. So we have an instructor. Our classrooms are social distance. We can only get about 7, 8 in there, and we haven't been currently doing that. There are certain people that may live in Syria that don't have and that truly can't do it. So what I'd like to have, the third request is a few computers so they can come in, use our Wi-Fi and things along those lines so they can still complete the classes.
This is a weird comment. What are you gonna do with $3,000? It sounds like you need more than $3,000.
$3,000 is, the wish list is $9,400. I'm not sure where the 3,000 came from. Mr. Hobbs, I've been communicating with him by email. We never talked a certain figure.
Larissa,
Yeah,
you think this is real important?
I think it's real important.
All right, he says $9,400. It's all being used in Madison County.
No, sir.
All right, break it up into what Madison County.
Yes, sir. Well, I originally requested money from Orange. I didn't scare. There's still a letter out there. They earmarked $3,000. So the 9,400 to come down to 6,100. I asked for money from Rappahannock under the joint exercise of power. Orange, Madison, Rappahannock, Culpeper, and Fauquier make up our jurisdiction. We're centrally located in Culpeper. Rappahannock said they didn't have any money for me. Culpeper said they didn't have any money. Fauquier had a few questions. I sent some more information to them. So it's Fauquier and Madison pending with only 3,000 earmarked from Orange.
If I remember, the idea was they asked us to match Orange County's contribution. I think that's where the 3,000 came from.
Yes, sir. Mr. Board,
Yeah.
he.
You want to stick with the 3,000?
Yeah.
There you go. What?
Yes.
This is an important program. It gets these folks back to work.
That's right.
So
What do you want to do? 3,000, you want to go up?
I want to go up.
He says 5. What do you want to do? We are doling out money hand over fist here. If this helps people, actually helps, I'm skeptical of some of this stuff, I'm not gonna lie to you anyway. If this actually helps some people, I don't think that's very good cause.
Yeah, of what we doled out, I
This is
have as much
critical.
confidence in this.
Right.
All right, move this VSAP up to 5K.
Thank you very much.
And you're probably gonna need to get her some type of form.
No, I'm probably gonna answer. Actually, would prefer to have me make the requests.
For the forms?
You're
No,
probably
I
going
mean,
to say,
if somebody is putting a request, I wanna look at it and I'm gonna ascertain what additional information I need. And that actually is
Go her.
what I said to begin with.
MJ Costello, Finance Director, find her email and get her whatever information she needs so that we're clear on an audit, please. Sure. Thank you very much. Moving on. Madison Learning Center, request for tuition assistance grants. Good to see you back there, Ms. Lacy. And let's throw also in there the request, the next line down from the Madison Learning Center, the request for supplies, equipment related to social distancing and cleaning. 18K on the first side, and then 11,943. Ms. Lacy, what would you like to say about this?
Well, I have some questions because this is kind of out of my wheelhouse when I come to ask you what I'm talking about. First off, after listening, I'm not so sure that the request for tuition assistance qualifies under the CARES grant because I just.
Mr. Gregg?
I'm not, as I understand the rules, I'm not certain it does.
All right, Mr. Gregg says that doesn't work.
Okay, right.
You agree?
I think that there's some, I was reading a report of the July 8th guidance, and I think I wouldn't necessarily, on a scale of 1 to 50, in terms of, on a scale of 1 to 10 of me being confident it's reimbursable, I'm probably at a 4. I'm not at a zero, I'm not at a zero.
What are we
Is that
doing
what-
a four, okay? I mean, good lord. I work on a one to seven process, four will mean something. Lord.
I actually had some of the language that I saw applied to other things.
But that would.
I think we need to have more information
You have to
about
pay to go there.
how you
Same thing,
offer
yeah.
scholarships. And really.
That was that COVID.
Change your request.
On a positive side, one of the local churches has recently said they're going to give us some money for tuition assistance.
Hey,
So I think it might be easier for my bookkeeping and we go after tuition assistance for the community other than just.
all right, let's do this. Sean Greg, what's your number? She gave you a four, you got like a 2 or a 1.
I was actually at 4,
At 4, that's cheap.
but I round down.
Yeah, I'm with you. Why don't we look at this, reevaluate, we're definitely probably gonna do another round of this, Joe. What about we'll cross that off temporarily. What about the request for extra supplies and equipment? Everybody, what?
That's so the CDBG meeting we sat in, it made it clear that they thought that this kind of stuff was reimbursable for kids.
All right.
We're talking about, we need extra tables, chairs.
Yes, ma'am.
School age children, same situation, boys and girls club is, we really don't know how many children we're gonna have each day.
I would hope you can fill that place up though.
Well, we're under unbelievable restrictions. The CDC and the governor's mandates have reduced our potential enrollment by 30%.
Hey. All right.
Because of how many children we can have in class. Children under 4, we can only have 10 children to adults. But more detail than you ever wanted to know. We're under like 4 licensing standards. And we cannot mix groups. So we're having to staff it, so it's costing us.
Yes,
more money. But so I put in after listening to that other grant request, some ideas for tables and chairs. And my question is, if we list these, do I specifically have to buy the dollar amount of what I listed, or can I say you give me?
No, bargain hunt.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if you can save some money, I mean, just because it's free money doesn't mean that, I mean, good lord. Everybody okay with giving, Ms. Lacy, Early Learning Center, all this? Very good.
So say that again, so.
You've got $11,943,
Okay.
as long as you can comply with MJ's forms that she filled out to make sure that you are completely applicable.
Everything we purchase, we save these.
Now, they're probably, what was your term again, MJ? For the outside organizations, the forms?
Sub-award agreement.
Yeah, sub-award agreement. The party knows all about sub-award agreements. There's a potential you all can utilize him. All right. Housing and utilities, that's for Ms. Ward. Don't really know right now. Come back on another round. The schools, an idea has been to maybe purchase some school buses with this. We know there's some restrictions. Not a bad idea. Finance and IT, you need a laser fish system.
So Laserfish is actually,
Laser fish?
it's what we were talking about, it's called an enterprise content management system, but it's actually it's a recreational electronic records management system that interfaces with the general, with our.
All right, so you're working on trying to get some prices.
We haven't, yeah, we don't have final. There's also a possibility that some components of the ERP system might be reimbursable through CARES. Anything that promotes remote working or paperless transactions. I'm still trying to get some more, I have to do some research on that. But that could potentially be well into the 6 figures.
No, good.
That's why, so I gotta say that right now, I look at this list and I see no problem spending the whole $2.2 million.
Well, we're on the right roll. We're gonna do some assistance with compliance and Department of Labor and industry standards.
Yes, this is something that came up this week, and we don't quite have it figured out, but the Governor's Department of Labor and Industry has new temporary emergency regulations that says we need to do some things to look at our workplace that might roll into improvements or additional money spent. But like I say, we don't have that figured out. We don't have that figured out at all. But it's clearly pandemic related.
Everybody good on that, we'll come back on this. Transfer station, we all know, regional jail, the true up pertaining to COVID potentially. Juvenile detention, same way. CSB is expenses above direct CARES grant. You know anything about that, Amber?
No, the idea is that we have these satellite agencies that are affiliated with the county that if they do have CARES expenses above and beyond, that we could pay for it out of this money versus a normal contribution, if the bookkeeping's done.
No, just walked out of here.
I can explain this.
For the ambulance.
Yes, the idea is that, and he was gonna work with his vendor, but if we can angle to have the fourth ambulance or some portion of it. So there's a ambulance build thing you have to go through. So if we could get the Chab and the Cassie before they get painted and upfitted, we can pay for just that, and that's something of a win. So we again, this all came up last week. We don't have it figured out, but it was a good idea.
This is one that even though they're in the price, I would think that we could certainly pursue aggressively. Yeah, I mean, it's such a big item. Anybody got any comment on that? Noah, try to get us an ambulance before December 30th.
Two ambulances.
Two ambulances, yes, sir. Not just the steering wheel. Sneeze guard for use during jury trials. Ms. Lau?
So the judge, as y'all been in the courtroom, the jury box sits right directly in front of the judge. And he's just wanting to put the glass, something right in front of him so that. Yeah.
Roger's been building these things. He's getting really good at it.
He's working on it. I mean, the
I
judge
would-
met with Roger, so I don't know all the details. He just didn't want, if the judge coughed or sneezed, he needed for a jury to turn around and go. Stop.
Roger's on it. We're glad to hear the judge and Roger are in communication. Y'all want to just leave that to administrative approval, move on with it. Our Roger and Hobbs and Ms. Lau and the judge deal with that. Food services for FY20.
This came in.
200K, that was last night.
It came in today, and I'm not clear whether this is CARES Act money or other federal money, but like I say, this is to be figured out.
But last night on their agenda, Mr. Hobbs, it says supplemental appropriation for food service for FY20 budget. Oh, that would be another 200 that you got to throw back into FY20.
So I'll answer this question. We have to appropriate the school food services budget, and there is no local share for that. It's all state, and it's all either fees, state, federal money. But they got additional federal money this year that was never appropriated. So it gets back to this. You got till the end of August to fix your FY20 budget. This has that $200,000 that they asked for as a FY20 appropriation that does not have anything to do.
Take it out of the CARES.
All right, so that, all right.
Take it out of the CARES list.
Yeah, it's not
Okay.
the CARES money. They got like more federal money.
Okay.
And what is this, like a budget adjustment?
Well, because they serve, didn't they serve like meals?
Yeah, every week.
And they got federal money to do it all.
The letter said COVID-19, that's why it's on here. We're
No,
good,
that's fine,
we're good.
That's fine, as long as we've got track of it, try to find out where 200K is.
Can I just put this out? Like if you want to buy, say, school buses are $87,000. So say you want to buy 3 new school buses. And you want to buy another ambulance, that's $281. And say I could come up with 150 in ERP costs that could be reimbursable. we could be at a place where, like, we're way over what we have requests. So the only thing I'm gonna put out there is do you really wanna push trying to get this $50,000?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Because it will require them to, I think this is probably one of the reasons they didn't want to do it. It would require them to, actually, redo something on their books. They have-
Let's talk to them. If they can't do it, then we can come back in 2 weeks and we can deal with it. But if at all possible, 58K, even $1,000, if we can charge this, that's non-restricted, or that is restricted, I don't know, opening books for $1,000, I can open a lot of books for $1,000, I'm sorry. The last one on here, which is on hold, is potentially land acquisition, for 50K. But we'll see on that. Anybody else got any questions? Got anything on this one, Mr. Cox?
As of right now, no, but sure as the world, there's some emails that have come in since this meeting started that will cause adjustments, but we'll roll with it.
Anybody else got anything on this? Just calling out. Huge amount of money. Mr. Hobbs, tell us about the work session schedule for amending the FY21 budget.
Yes, everybody's aware that we had what was originally a COVID budget, even though there were some cuts to it at the 11th hour. The scheme was that we might be off when it comes to county tax revenue, which we don't understand yet because the books haven't closed. We shuffled some capital spending. We closed the bond and had some proceeds from that. And so with the structuring of the bonds, we have a different cost structure this next calendar year than we had earlier anticipated. And then complicating things, we have the legislature that's going to meet on August 18, and that might be favorable to the county, it might not be. The idea was that the board would meet after a certain point. So what I'm envisioning is maybe a second meeting in September or later, we would be able to have that conversation. I don't know that anything dramatic has happened. I'm not aware of it, but when you put all those things together, we are in a different place than we were 4 months ago, if that makes sense. So I just want to make sure it's on everybody's radar screen to come back and look at this.
No, I don't think so. Is Ms. Murray on there? There is a button on the side of that phone. If you ever at home, it's an iPhone, right? I mean, it's on the side of it.
Turn it off.
I mean, good Lord.
This is my.
We all honestly appreciate it.
Diabetes specialist.
Yeah, Livingston is right next to you. He will help you.
Stephanie's on video.
Did she say anything about coming from revenue, coming from the state?
No.
All right.
She's been having issues with the video sound coming in and out, so she's been popping back and forth.
Do you have anything to say?
I'll ask her.
All right, let's keep moving. We can always come back to that one. All right. Keep us posted on what comes out of the legislature. All right. Let's go to anybody else have any other old business? New business, potential employee assistance program. Mr. Hobbs?
Yes, and this is a first reading on this. It's certainly not developed because we need to do some things like procurement and re-contracts and find out whether other potential vendors these parts, but this is something the county, I think, does need. This employee assistance program is different than what the same words that health insurance folks are putting out there. This would apply to not just employees that are on health insurance, but family members, part-time folks, even board members, if we got into that kind of situation. So it gets into things that we can do for management referral. We have an employee that has a personal issue that we're just not equipped to handle. We could work through them. There's a lot of good things that could come out of this from an HR standpoint. So if the board doesn't mind, I would pursue this a little bit, bring it back for you to consider at a later date. What's in your package is a spot proposal. This is the only vendor I'm aware of in these parts, but we do need to do some checking on that. And I'm not aware of their performance in these parts.
Yeah. So, but based on the fiscal impact you put in there, we would have no way of knowing how much this would